Welcome to the beast, I unleash, I'm a motherfucking beast.
What's up, YouTube? So today is a rest day. It is day 18 and we are 12 days away from the end of the 30-day kickstart. And so today I'm gonna talk to you guys about this little spiel that I've given before to our KCM challenge girls a little while back, and I think it's one of the best talks I've ever given to anyone. So I really want to just express everything that I said to them to you guys. What question actually sparked this train of thought was I got a question from someone who's entered into the contest, and she asked, does she need to zero out her macros every day, or can there be some like wiggle room? And this isn't something that I actually touched on very much, but typically my rule of thumb with my clients is be within 3 to 5-ish grams of your carbs and protein above or below, and within 2 to 3 grams of your fats above or below per day, and you can call that a perfect day. The reason being is because I'm not trying to encourage neuroticism. I'm not trying to encourage anyone to freak out if they don't hit like 150 grams of something on the dot. Like, that is not the mindset you want to have with flexible dieting. You want to have some room for error. And she asked, how is it that if I zero out my macros, in the case that I do, that I still have calories left, or I'm still over my calories, or they don't match up on MyFitnessPal? And the reason for this is that the FDA allows companies to round their labels by about 5%. And that completely explains why every single label ends in a 5 or a 0. It either ends in like 55 calories per serving, or 140 calories per serving, or 500 calories per serving. And in reality, of course, it's not actually exactly that number. It's food, it's variable. Like, when they make things in factories, not everything is the exact same size. The serving size that's listed on the label is actually the average size that they produce in production. So, for example, if a Lenny and Larry's cookie, the serving size is 2 ounces, that's the average size of the cookie that they typically make in production. However, if you weigh out a full cookie, that's not always what half a cookie weighs. So not only do labels round their calories up and down by 5% because the FDA allows it and it makes the product more appealing if the calories are rounded down per se for a diet food. Different restaurants, different companies will round differently, but they do round their calories, so it's not exact. And so that's why when you plug in some foods that are packaged or anything with a label on it, that is the 1, average serving size, and 2, the label has been rounded. So when you plug it into MyFitnessPal, even if you're weighing it out to the gram with your scale, it's not going to zero out perfectly. I will reference the FDA papers down in the description box below because I find them very interesting, and I think it would be helpful for you guys to actually read that and see like the FDA regulations that labels can be rounded. And then on top of that, just know that things that are packaged are not always exactly the serving size that they say. For example, a Quest bar is like 60 something grams for a serving, or whatever it says on the label. Out of curiosity, I have taken it out of the wrapper and weighed it out, and it's not always exactly that number. Usually it's pretty close, but for example, with something like a Lenny and Larry's cookie, one time I actually weighed one out. It was about 5.5 ounces for the whole cookie, and the serving size said there were 2 in a package and it was 2 ounces, so the whole thing should have been 4, but it was like 5.5, and that added a lot of carbs to my day for that cookie. And needless to say, I regretted weighing it that day because not all cookies are oversized. Some might be undersized and some might be the right size. But I just want you guys to know that when you are plugging things in with a label, it's not going to be 100% accurate, even if you're zeroing out what's on MyFitnessPal. First of all, just know that your calories and your macros are not going to line up, so focus on the macronutrient numbers, because if you're hitting those as best you can. That's actually more accurate than if you are going by calorie labels. So go by the macros, ignore the calorie discrepancy. Second of all, know that labels round. Third, know that the serving size is actually the average serving size of production with any processed food. And that leads me into my next point, being that nothing is perfect. So even if you are zeroing out that number on MyFitnessPal, whatever your macro goal might be, 100, 200, 300 grams of something, you're not actually getting that dead exact amount every day. So for example, even if you stray completely away from processed foods, you don't eat a single thing with a label on it, which is great. Like if you eat like that and you enjoy it, that is awesome. And you definitely have less room for variability that way because whole foods will be in general more consistent. However, that is still not going to give you a guarantee of actually zeroing it out. So for example, let's take whole eggs. The USDA database has the whole egg entry as 50 grams for an egg. Are all eggs 50 grams when you crack them into a bowl? No, I've done it before. Out of curiosity, I have cracked and weighed multiple eggs as I cook them. And it turns out some are 60 grams, some are 45, some are 53, some are 50 on the dot, and it just depends. Does that mean I'm saying to weigh out your eggs when you crack them and plug in the exact number of grams? No, do not be neurotic about it. There is nothing wrong with the amount of variability that naturally occurs in food. That's why this is called flexible dieting. We are not freaking out over the little details. We don't need to control those little details. Even on contest prep, I didn't weigh out each egg separately. Then that's the most extreme circumstance where you need to control as many variables as possible, and I wasn't going that crazy. And then other things that you definitely cannot control, for example, are, let's say, something like chicken or fruit or vegetables. Nothing is going to be perfect with that either. Even if they're giving you the 99% chicken breast tenderloins, when you eat them, you don't know what specific chicken they came from. Obviously, if they're being raised in a controlled breeding environment for being harvested as food, it's going to be a little more consistent because the living conditions are all the same. They're getting fed the same stuff. But some chickens are going to have different genetics that make them grow differently. They might have a higher body fat content, just like people have different body fat set points, and how we grow and develop differently, even with the same regimens. That's something to take into account. I'm not saying chickens develop the same way humans do, but I'm just saying each individual, no matter what species you are, food, fruit, vegetable, animal, we're all unique and different. So there's going to be a discrepancy between one chicken and another, and one package of chicken and another that you buy at the store. Are you ever going to know what the discrepancy is? No, but some packaging might have a little more fat than the other. One might have more protein than the other. That is just stuff that we cannot control about the whole unprocessed food that we eat, that we just have to deal with. For another example, let's say you're buying fruit like apples or berries or something of that nature. How they're grown, of course they're grown in a controlled environment. The variables are controlled as much as possible, and on average the USDA has calculated that strawberries, let's say, per 100 grams are X amount number of carbs, X amount number of sugar. But depending on the conditions that the fruit was grown in, how the weather was, how many preservatives the farmers used, or the pesticides, the fruit might have developed and grown having more natural sugars in it or less natural sugars in it for that batch, for that harvest season, than the next one or the previous one. And there's no way we can tell that, but we're using the USDA database numbers in our MyFitnessPal entries so that we're kind of eliminating as much variability as possible, because that's our most reliable source of data. But are we ever going to really know if that one berry had this many carbs or not? No. And there's no reason to freak out about it. So those are just a couple examples, and I hope it just puts into perspective the fact that nothing is perfect. No matter how hard you try to zero out your numbers with this food scale and everything like that on MyFitnessPal, nothing is perfect. The biggest thing that I want you to take away from this, guys, is don't go crazy about it. Accept the imperfection. I promise you, you will have so much more peace of mind knowing there's already imperfection in the food that you're eating. There's already discrepancies in this package versus that package, and this piece of produce versus this piece of produce, and that's okay. And also, even if we're zeroing out our numbers completely, we're still not absolutely perfect, and that is 100% okay. The last thing that I wanted to touch on is that this just speaks more to the fact of why it is still important that we are weighing our food for this 30-day kickstart. Now, weighing your food with a food scale and measuring everything out to the gram or to the ounce, that's not something that you should be doing for the rest of your life. However, we are giving ourselves a really good idea of portion sizing and what portion sizes look like, feel like, how heavy they are for certain foods, certain types of foods. And this is knowledge that you're going to carry with you throughout the rest of your life. So hopefully it's sticking with you now as you're practicing it. Maybe do it for a couple more months. Some people even a couple more years is fine. I've been tracking my macros diligently for about 3 years now, and it has not negatively impacted my mental health, but that depends on the individual. But it is important to weigh our food, get the most accurate measurement as possible, so that when we are getting close to zeroing out our numbers for the day, or we are zeroing out our numbers for the day, that we know that there is as little variability as possible. Because if I've hit 000 out of my total carbs, fats, and proteins for the day, then I know that I've weighed everything out to the best of my ability, everything is as close as it can possibly be on the app, and I've eaten that food, but the variability within the food is unknown, so it could still be just a little bit off. So when you have an end goal in mind, whether that be this 30-day kickstart, whether it be a competition prep, a photo shoot date, a vacation, whatever it may be, if you have that end goal in mind, limiting the amount of variability that you have within your day-to-day life with your food will help you get closer to that goal. Because then if something's not working, if you're not making the progress you want, then you know, okay, I'm managing my diet literally as best as I possibly can, not perfectly, but as close to perfect as possible. So something else needs to change. I need to either change my macros or increase cardio or whatever, and you know that that change is actually going to make a difference because you are in control of that change. You have the least amount of variability to deal with. For times in your life where you don't have an end goal, weighing your food out to the gram is not necessary. Eyeballing things becomes much more acceptable because you don't have to manage your variability. If you're happy maintaining where you are, then continue the healthy habits that you have, but maybe don't weigh out your lettuce next time you make a salad. Maybe just eyeball it and be like, this is the amount I usually use, and that's that. So hopefully that puts things in perspective. Hopefully that helps you guys just kind of have some peace of mind with this macro tracking frenzy with the food scale. And I know that sometimes numbers can get to your head, but this is a good way to just kind of think about it as a whole. Nothing is perfect. We control the variability as much as we can, but at the end of the day, we don't necessarily know 100%, and we have to learn to be okay with that. And hopefully that helps my fellow macro trackers out there. Make sure you're focusing on macros, not your calorie count at the end of the day if there's a discrepancy between the two. And let me know if you have any questions about the topic below or any feedback whatsoever. Have a great rest day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow for shoulders and abs, day 19. So bye guys, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.